cooking is getting a guest that everyone wants to talk to.
During the spring and summer of 1987, there wasn't a news organization in the country that didn't want to interview Gary Hart, with two questions topping the list. Was he getting back into the race for president? And had there been an affair with Donna Rice?
The National Enquirer has now published pictures of Hart and Rice together that suggest a closer relationship.
There's the picture, which you have probably seen to such a point that you yes. feel like throwing up every
yes.
time you see it. But there's the picture of you with Donna Rice perched on your lap.
Yes.
On the boat.
No, it wasn't on the boat.
Well,
on a pier, on a public pier.
On a public pier.
Yeah.
Again, Senator, we're not now talking about having men and women for friends. We're talking about something that certainly has about it every possible impression of impropriety.
I know. It was a very, very bad mistake. I've already said that. I will continue to say it. I have to live with that for the rest of my life. It was suggested I have my picture taken with Miss Rice, this attractive lady whom I had only recently been introduced to. Dropped into my lap. I was embarrassed. I chose not to dump her off, and the picture was taken. I shouldn't have been in that situation. I should not have been in that situation. It was a very serious mistake.
One of the truly remarkable things about living in America today is that if you're in public life, a certain percentage of what you do has got to be done on television. Sometimes that can be terribly painful, as it must have been for Senator Hart when he came on Nightline.
I'm not a perfect man, Mr. Koppel. I'm a human. I commit sins. The Bible I read says we all commit sins. Mine happen to be pretty visible.
I told you some days ago when we spoke, and I told our audience this evening, that I would ask you both questions. I will ask you the first now, just before we take a break, because I think I know what your answer is going to be. Did you have an affair with Ms. Rice?
Mr. Koppel, if the question is, in the 29 years of my marriage, including 2 public separations, have I been absolutely and totally faithful to my wife? I regret to say the answer is no. But I also am never going to answer any specific questions about any individual. I have no privacy. My wife has privacy, and other innocent people have privacy. And I don't care what questions are asked tonight or any time in the future. I'm not going to answer them on any specific instance. Now, I've been forced to make a declaration here that I think is unprecedented in American political history, and I regret it. That question should never have been asked, and I shouldn't have to answer it. But I will say to you this, and I would say this to the National Press Corps: never ask another candidate that question.
In November of 1982, the Soviet leader Leonid Brezhnev died, and we had an unprecedented collection of guests: 2 former secretaries of state and 3 former presidents of the United States, all on the same program.
As a communist, believe me, he was as tough and ruthless and frankly able as anyone I've ever met.
My real belief is that from the bottom of his heart, he wanted to avoid any kind of war or conflict that would directly affect the Soviet people.
He could be a very, very tough, very staunch negotiator on behalf of the Soviet Union.
But quite frankly, it's not always the biggest names that produce the most memorable programs. Sometimes what sticks in people's memories is the aura, the atmosphere of an interview.
Well, there's only one guest who felt she was treated unfairly. And I think Ted subsequently apologized, and that was Geraldine Ferraro.
What's your worst fear?
Oh, messing up in an interview on television, probably. I mean, that's the biggest fear I have. The rest of this, the easy stuff, like foreign policy and arms control, I can handle that stuff. You can hear the Wall Street Journal repeating what the administration says time and time and time again.
Yeah, but we are talking...
Let me finish.
Yeah, but we're talking facts here, Ms. Ferraro.
No, what you were saying and what this Wall Street Journal is saying, what the administration is saying, is that we are not at equal basis with each other, that we are an inferior force, and that is not a fact.
No,
the Joint Chiefs of Staff...
Forgive me, I'm not saying anything. I'm asking you, when you say between us...
Well, I'm saying no.
The complaint was that I treated her differently than if I'd been interviewing a male candidate for national office. Actually, I think what people may have been reacting to is that I treated Geraldine Ferraro precisely the way I would have treated any other national candidate.
When you say between us, we're building 5 or 6 a day, I'm asking you, how many are the Soviets building and how many are we building?
I'm saying, you want me to say we're building 3 and they're building 2, and
If
one day
that's-
they're building 3 and they're building 2? I don't know, but between us we have 5 or 6
If that's the reality of it, yes.
Still, she felt I treated her badly, as did several of my colleagues in whom I have a great deal of confidence. So I called and I apologized. I don't think that ever caused me to pull punches in later campaigns, though, with other candidates.
Do you want to start back over with the rationale of why we didn't think it was arms for
No,
hostages?
I understand. I understand the
well,
rationale.
I think I'm entitled. Well, but you just don't like my answer.
No, what I'm saying is I find your answer...
You asked the question, but you don't like the answer. What do you want me to say?
I find the answer inconsistent with the evidence is what I'm saying,
Well,
Mr. Vice President.
that's your opinion. That's fine, then.
There were basically 2 subjects that I pushed with Vice President Bush at the time, Iran-Contra and Noriega. Maybe it was just the atmosphere, but he kept confusing me with another newsman.
And yes, things went wrong, and I've admitted it. And Dan, I'll take all the credit, all the blame for that.
Dan's the other fella.
I mean, Ted, you sound like Mike Dukakis and Jesse Jackson.
No, I'll tell you what,
Pessimistic about
that's why I tried to say at the beginning of this program, and
You did, that's right.
And you recognize this.
I take that back. No,
you're gonna take the positive issues in your campaign speeches and in your advertising. Yeah. It's up to me to raise some of the negative ones. I just want to...
Just so we get equal time, just so you dwell on the negatives with the same amount of time for the opponents as you do for me. I think that's a fair deal.
I think you can count on it.
Let me
just...
I can't wait to tune in.
The point that I'm trying to make, you're still coming back with the same answers that you've been giving for weeks now. And what I'm saying to you, or at least suggesting to you, is that the Bush campaign, as much as you may not like the way it's being handled, is effective as all get out.
Well, I'm not sure. I think people are turning on to that
if
kind
the
of
polls,
stuff.
well, but not yet.
Well,
if anything, the polls are moving further and further away from victory for you.
My sense is that people are turning off to the campaign.
Based on what?
Based on my own reading of what's happening out there, my own contact with people, and what our people are telling us. I think there's still a long way to go, and this kind of campaign, 13 days, is a very long time. And
no, it's not. 13 days is almost nothing.
I've always felt that Governor Dukakis had been badly served by his staff on that occasion. Instead of scheduling a light day so that he could prepare for what was, after all, a 90-minute network interview, they kept him campaigning from 5:30 in the morning until just an hour or so before Nightline at 11:30 that night. He was exhausted, and it showed.
What is a liberal in 1988?
That's maybe a question that we ought to ask George Bush if he had been here.
No, I'd like to hear what your definition.
Well, I think all of us have combinations of liberal and conservative about us, Ted. I'm not
Governor,
a label.
forgive me. That's been your answer now for 3 months.
Yeah, but
I'd like to hear what you define. What is a liberal?
Well, if one is a liberal in the tradition of Franklin Roosevelt and Harry Truman and John Kennedy, and I'm
1988, Governor.
One is somebody who cares deeply about people, sees concerns, sees opportunities to make a real difference in the lives of real people, and works hard in public service to help make that difference in a way that will improve the quality of life of all of our people. But like most people, I have certain conservative instincts as well.
In one sense, with all due respect, let me suggest to you, I still don't think you get it.
That may have been pushing things a little, and who knows what might have happened if Governor Dukakis had pushed back hard. It's difficult to believe that anything could have won the election for him at that point, but there was a moment to be seized just then, and he never did.